just gonna burn some extra fat. MYTHBUSTERS, busters. Episode 2, L-carnitine for fat loss. I am not a nutritionist and therefore I'm highly qualified to give nutritional information on YouTube. So this is something that I've made a mistake about in the past also. And it's a real case of where theory does not apply to practical supplementation. And in this video, I am going to reference some popular fitness figures. And why am I doing this? Because their information is powerful. If you type in this topic into YouTube, their videos come up first on the front page. And that makes their information powerful because most people will click on the first few videos. Does that mean that because I disagree with them about L-carnitine, that all their information is invalid? No, it doesn't. Does it mean they're bad people? No, it doesn't. Does it mean they're purposefully misleading you? No, it doesn't.
And 95% of your L-carnitine stores are in your muscle in general. So that means when you're moving around, when you're lifting weights, when you're running, your body is either using glucose that's stored in the muscle,
Glycogen,
or it's using fat. You see, if we look at it like this, let's say you had 50% glucose utilization and 50% fat utilization.
So which one is it, Thomas? You've just said that when you exercise, you either use fats for fuel or sugars for fuel. And then later in the same video, you give an example based on this research where you're using both sugars and fats for fuel.
Now you have 20% more carnitine, which means that you're now going to have 70% more fat utilization and 30% glucose utilization.
And we don't know exactly how much, for example, fats for fuel we use at lower intensity. This is a very variable number. And I want to give a disclaimer that this video is about L-carnitine supplementation for fat loss purposes only. There is validity to the idea that L-carnitine can supplement for mood and for cognitive issues and for endurance and performance. However, a lot of supplements that are targeted at you are for fat loss purposes, and I simply disagree, and I believe that you are being misled in some cases. And so what is the most significant support of L-carnitine for fat loss? Well, Center et al. 2012 did find a positive relationship between L-carnitine supplementation and fat loss in overweight cats. I do not. And so carnitine is produced by the body, but perhaps in insignificant doses. And so you take in carnitine through food sources, primarily through animal protein sources.
Here you're going to add about 3,000 milligrams of carnitine. Now, carnitine is just an amino acid that's synthesized in the liver and synthesized in the kidneys. Okay, super simple. It's naturally occurring, and a lot of times we are deficient in it.
That a lot of time we are deficient in it. And again, this is kind of misleading, and this builds towards this support of L-carnitine. It gives you this kind of storyline to follow, but it's not accurate. Actually, yes, carnitine deficiency is valid. But if we look at Rabush 1992, he actually explains that deficiencies would happen for premature infants or infants with disease or disease related to aging and certain populations who may not ingest animal protein sources such as vegans. These may be the populations who are deficient in carnitine. To suggest that a lot of the time we are deficient in carnitine is not correct. But if you are deficient in carnitine, then yes, absolutely supplementing in it is important. But isn't that common sense? Isn't that really at the heart of what supplementation is? If you are deficient in it for some reason, that actually supplementing to return to normal levels makes perfect sense. And we have to distinguish between acetyl L-carnitine and L-carnitine. There is a slight difference. Acetyl meaning that it has an acetyl group attached, which helps it move through the blood-brain barrier, which has specific uses towards cognitive function, whereas L-carnitine, which has a different molecular structure. Both forms of supplementation are ineffective for fat loss. And so first of all, I have to explain how carnitine fits into the fat loss process. We have lipolysis, which involves the breakdown of stored fat and mobilization of fatty acids. These fatty acids are transported through the blood into the target cell to be burnt up. And within the target cell, they have to move from the cytoplasm of the cell to the mitochondria. The mitochondria is where this sort of this burning of this fatty acid takes place, where it is converted to ATP and usable forms of energy. And the way that the fatty acids are transported from the cytoplasm to the mitochondria is with the help of carnitine. And so this is where carnitine fits into the fat loss process as a transporter of the fatty acids into that fire. You can kind of think of it as a shovel throwing those fatty acids into the fire to be burnt up. And so it would make theoretical sense that supplementing L-carnitine would help to expedite this process.
Now I want to reference a study from 2011 because up until 2011 it was all kind of speculative whether L-carnitine worked or not. And after 2011 it just kind of blew up in the media.
And so he references this 2011 study, and this is the smoking gun for L-carnitine supplementation targeted towards fat loss.
A UK study had subjects take 2 grams of L-carnitine, L-tartrate, twice a day.
Wall et al. 2011.
You see, in 2011, the Journal of Physiology found that if you supplemented L-carnitine for a period of 6 months, at least in this case of this study, L-carnitine for 6 months led to a 21% increase in carnitine stores within the muscle. That means a 20% increase in ultimate fat utilization. So more L-carnitine in the muscle means more fat utilization in the muscle, which can ultimately mean a leaner physique.
And I disagree with him that there is direct causation shown in this study in relation to a further burning, mobilization, or transport of fat, whatever you want to call it. And so what this study does show is a real significant promise that increased muscle carnitine is possible through supplementation, but also that at lower intensity exercise levels, less glycogen is used as an energy source. But that is not a clear indication that fat oxidation has increased as a result of L-carnitine supplementation. In fact, this study did not measure lipid oxidation, which you would think would be quite important for these people giving you this clear causation. And therefore much further work is needed. And what's kind of funny about this is that in Thomas DeLauer's video, he gives references, and the references he gives, of course, Wall et al., which does not directly support his claims, but he does reference it quite correctly in some senses, but he also references Salin as one of his references, and Salin actually disagrees with what Thomas says. Salin, who completed an analysis of this study, who concluded that actually, yes, it did not measure lipid oxidation. And he said, and I quote, "It may be anticipated that further work on this subject will determine whether carnitine can specifically enhance lipid oxidation." Branch and Adair 2002 did not find a significant effect of L-carnitine supplementation on fat loss. Villani et al. 2000 studied 15 obese women in a double-blind study who took 4 grams of L-carnitine, and no significant change was found between the test group and the control group. I think it's time for another fat burning session.
You see, in 2011, the Journal of Physiology found.
The Journal of Physiology found. Again, this confuses me because this makes me believe that he hasn't read the research or does not quite connect with research, because the Journal of Physiology did not find. Wall et al. 2011, their study found, and this was published in the Journal of Physiology. That would be like me saying YouTube found that the stabilizing muscles in the body basically stabilize your body.
What's the main reason for having abs? And that is to stabilize your spine. Your core muscles are meant to keep your spine stabilized, basically.
Actually, it was Vince Sant who made that profound statement. And so when I hear him talk about it, does he communicate some accurate information from the study? Yes, but is his conclusion correct? No, it's not. And if you want to take this study literally, let me explain to you what that would mean. This study showed an increase in muscle carnitine levels after 6 months of supplementation with a carbohydrate drink. But there was no significant increase in muscle carnitine levels leading up to those 6 months. So you would have to take 2 grams of carnitine for 6 months before you would even see an increase in your muscle carnitine levels, which may lead to more fat burning, but this was not clearly measured. Does that sound to you like a solid base for selling you L-carnitine supplements with the direct cause of helping to burn fat?
So more L-carnitine in the muscle means more fat utilization in the muscle, which can ultimately mean a leaner physique.
What they found after 24 weeks of the study is not only did subjects burn more fat when they exercised, which spared muscle glycogen, allowing them to have more energy, go longer, go stronger.
And so what this study does show is that more fat was used for energy at lower intensity, which would be expected, and we do know this. However, it does not show that it was the mechanism of L-carnitine transporting fatty acids to be oxidated that was the key determinant in the energy utilization. It just does not measure for that, and that's where this is getting lost in his information.
The group consuming the carnitine versus the placebo group, who are getting 160 grams of fast digesting carbs a day, didn't gain any body fat.
Nope. And then Jim talks about body mass within the study, and this is misleading in my opinion. Why is this? Well, firstly, because this study clearly states that each participant was told how many calories was in the drink they were being given. In the control group, which was a carbohydrate drink with no carnitine, and the test group, which contained the carbohydrate drink with the L-carnitine in it. And it was 600 calories. And so it is correct to say that the L-carnitine group did not increase body mass, and that the control group did increase body mass by around 2 kilograms, which may not be overly significant amongst the participants in 6 months. However, there's again no clear causal effect that it was the L-carnitine that was the determining factor in this body mass maintenance, and they didn't lose body mass, they only maintained body mass. Other variables such as calories in and out, energy balance, which is pretty important to body recomposition, were not measured or communicated. We don't know the participants' different activity levels, their jobs, their non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how many calories they were burning. Were some people measuring their calories better than others? Were some people training harder than others? We don't know. And so having this direct communication of, well, the L-carnitine group did not put on mass, again, is slightly misleading in my opinion in terms of how this piece of research is being communicated to you.
The group consuming the carnitine versus the placebo group, who are getting 160 grams of fast digesting carbs a day, didn't gain any body fat. I've already got you covered with 2 grams of Carnipure L-carnitine L-tartrate in my post chip.
And again, Dr. Jim, well, that is convenient. And I like this quote from Dr. Eddie Joe, who says that physiology is not easily tricked, and I will talk more about him and his graphics and his information in other videos. And so this very much is a case of where something makes sense theoretically in terms of the mechanism of fat loss, but where the supplementation to try and aid in that process does not work based on the research we have. And some of you may say, well, what about the synergistic effects if I combine something such as caffeine with L-carnitine? Well, it wouldn't make a difference because they have different roles in the fat burning process. Something such as caffeine is a fat extractor, helping to take fat out of the cells, whereas, as I've said, carnitine is specific to the transport of fatty acids between the cytoplasm and the mitochondria. And so in essence, in my opinion, I just don't see how that would make a significant effect. And so I'm James Linker, Shredded Sports Science. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.